Let's call this meeting to order. Today is June 24th. This is a meeting of the School Building Committee. Pursuant to Governor Healy's approved legislation, House Bill 62, extending authorizations for all local boards, commissions, committees to hold public meetings remotely or in the hybrid format. Extended timeline amendment, Section 38 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, most recently amended by Section 40 of Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, and replacing the current expiration date of March 31st, 2025 with June 30th, 2027. Therefore, this meeting is being conducted via remote participation in order to ensure public access to deliberations. And if you would join me, we'll do the quick Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Evan, here you go. Thanks. All right, with that said, let me just throw out a little... Well, let's do our introductions. We have Dr. Roy here.
Yes. Hi, Dr. Fran Roy, incoming superintendent.
Welcome.
Sharon Pino, the recording secretary.
Brian Neely, Vice President of Gale Associates, registered architect.
Jeff Wade, School Building Committee.
Evan Gendro, School Committee Liaison to the School Building Committee.
I'm Shauna Tees on the Select Board.
Jim Hartnett, Town Administrator.
David Cass, School Building Committee.
John Bernier, teacher and School Building Committee member.
Tony Vieira, School Building Committee member.
Kim Willett, Westport Schools Supervisor of Facilities.
Tony Toma, IT Director for the school system.
And I'm Tony Veras, the chair of the committee. Sorry, Tom.
No worries, Tom. I'll be always present.
And I'm Tony Veras, the chair of the school committee, and just many of us have been doing this for, Tom, way too long.
Way too long.
I was actually talking to my wife, and I'm like, when did the school open up? And as soon as I start talking about the school, forget it. Like, see, Avery was a junior. He's going to be a junior in college next year, 4 years. So crazy. So anyway, with that said, I know we haven't, it's the same old thing. Behind the scenes, Tom and Jim been doing a lot of work, phone calls, meeting with people, meeting with Brian, talking to our architects, talking to the contractor, talking to this one, that one, meetings here at the school, trying to iron this out. Obviously, we're trying to button this up. As we know, Tom is going to be leaving here very soon, so that wisdom is going to be at least out of the building. We might have to call him a few times. As we know, Jim may also be leaving here shortly. And again, that wisdom and the background with this project will be, we'll be losing some of that. So I think it's imperative that we try to wrap this up. And like I said, behind the scenes, these many meetings, conversations, emails, back and forth. And so today will be a recap of where we are. We have some outstanding invoices that we need to pay. So I'll turn this over to Jim.
All right, thanks. So just starting, see if I can go to this thing here. So just starting off with the budget, we had two appropriations. We had a free cash that we used for the feasibility study for $694,000. And then we had the borrowing authorization for the overall project of $96,844,000 for a total of $97,580,000. To date, we've expended $94 million. Oh, geez, too bad, huh? $94,960,000, leaving about $2.6 million of funding available that has been authorized but unexpended. This varies slightly from what our project manager has, but we're very close. There may have just been a bill or two that got cross-referenced, but we're very close. But out of that $2.6 million, we still have a balance with Agostini under his contract of about $1 million. So that leaves available for spending roughly about $1.6 million. There's two caveats to that. There's one, under Agostini's contract, out of that $1 million, $628,000 is contingency that hasn't been earmarked to spend it yet. So while the contract, we still have them under contract for $1 million, we really only owe them, at this point, about $372,000. $372,000. So once we get a change order with Agostini to close that out, or we close out that contract, we'll have some additional money available for expenditures. We also have an ARPA funding or grant from our local ARPA funds for $170,766, which is available as well. So we're about, like I said, we got 2.6 million that we have not expended. We got about 1.6 million that is available today, plus the 170. So there is money here to finish up some of the existing things that need to be done. I imagine that if the contractor, we'll probably have to give the contractor one more opportunity to finish some of these things, and if they don't, we may have to expend the money to do it ourselves, and then either go after the contractor or try to resolve that later on. I think the object now, we've been kind of spinning our wheels for a couple of years now, trying to get these things resolved. I think we're at the point now where we just got to get it done. We may have to go out to bid to get it done and not go through the general contractor. There's really I don't think there's another option at this point.
And just to add to that, this past Tuesday, we meet here at the school, Jim? Last week. Last week, myself, Tom, Jim, Kim,
Jeff Wade,
Brian, Jeff,
Charlie.
Charlie from the JLA. Who else? Anyway, we met, Tony. We met and discussed a lot of these issues, and we went out into the building, up on the roof, and showing Charlie everything, and this, that, and the other, and, again, I mean, we've heard it before, but, they're willing to help us figure out the best way to fix it, so.
So that's where we are with the budget. We're still well under budget, and we do have enough funds to finish or address any issues that are outstanding. So a couple of things that have come up that have been talked about ongoing for a long time now is the cell phone service here in the building. We still have an outstanding bill for a service point of about $3,400 that we haven't paid. Tony's worked with them or met with them once on site. I think we need to get another meeting with them to see if we can get them to address some of the deficiencies in cell service in the building. We spent about $110,000 to wire this building for cell service, and it's not as good as it should be, so.
So, Tony, could you update us? So the guy came by a couple of weeks ago,
He did.
but he couldn't really finish his test because his computer was down or
So the moment he got out of
something.
his vehicle, he walked around the building, he did basically a cell signal survey. And I'll get to
That's from the
results.
tower though, right?
That's from the outside tower.
Thank
He
you.
went around the perimeter of the building. When he walked inside, and he was gonna do basically a heat map inside, he found that his antenna had broken, so he was unable to begin that process. What he did note was when he came originally, prior to the install, and did his survey, compared to what happened about a month ago, he said the signal strength outside was markedly lower than the previous one. So that tells me that, signal strength outside of this building from 3 years ago versus today has been reduced for whatever reason. Maybe it's just
According to them.
according to them, correct. I wanted him to come in and do a heat map so that we could determine where we have weak spots within the building and if everything is consistent. I'm looking up there because that device right there, not the speaker, but this right here, is one of those antennas. I got one bar.
So, Tony, did
Closer, I
you?
have 2 bars.
Go ahead, Jim.
Right.
So, Tony, did you call him back? And, because we had asked that we set up a meeting.
So I contacted him and I said, we're gonna withhold the money until he comes out again. He said he would be happy to come out again. It's just a matter of scheduling the date.
So, yeah, I mean, go ahead and just, when he can, just let us know.
Okay.
So, one thing we talked about last time was options. You want to speak on that while we're on this subject?
So, I don't want to say it's grandiose, it's something that's much larger than installing an antenna booster inside, and what he was saying, again, about the reference word booster versus extender.
Repeater, it's like a repeater.
He wanted to make sure that I was aware that the term booster is not quite as accurate as a transference of signal. So if you've got 1.5 bars outside, you're trying to transfer that inside, not actually boost it. He said there might be a slight bit of boosting, but generally speaking, it's more of a transfer of the signal versus anything, which kind of changed my perspective about the install, because a lot of times you're outside and you can't get signal even outside. So really, what was the point? The one thing that he did mention, I mean, it's a great idea, but it's a lot more complicated, would be perhaps go to one of the providers and ask them if they can install a tower somewhere on town property. Of course, there's going to be a process, voting, approvals and whatnot, but that would have been one way to actually have this section of town have excellent connectivity with cell service.
So as someone who lives maybe, I don't know, maybe a mile from here, down on, off of Drift here, it's a terrible dead zone down there at the head. It is bad. I mean, at my house, it's better. It's not great. But this area down here has notoriously been bad.
Yep.
Hasn't been great. I mean, that I know. I mean, you drive down, as soon as I make that corner, if I'm on the phone, I know I'm gonna lose somebody.
Yep.
Usually I lose them.
Yes.
Has it gotten worse over the couple of years, like they say? Or
I mean, I don't, again, it's the same dead area. I don't know if it's gotten any worse. But I'm sure if we called whoever, Verizon or whoever owns the closest antenna,
Right.
I'm sure they could probably tell us if it's weaker or. But the point is that we spent, these guys came in and sold us a bill of goods and told us that they were gonna fix our cell phone service in the building, and we said, okay, it's something we need to do, let's do it.
Yep.
But the results have been meager, to say the least.
Yes. Outside of one of our science classrooms is one of those antennas. The teacher would stand literally under it, not even knowing that the antenna is there, and he'll get no signal.
How many did they install, do you know? You recall on that?
Oh,
20,
60?
60?
maybe, yeah. There's a lot of those.
Okay.
Like every wing probably has 3 or 4 in it minimum.
52.
52.
Okay, 52.
So you'd think with 52 of those little doohickeys, we'd be able to make a call. Go ahead, Jeff.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the main reasons to get this in was for safety. And at our last meeting, I thought we talked about another option, and that's Bluetooth or some other way to get. The biggest thing is if there's something going on that shouldn't be going on in the school, and they put out an announcement, do they do it through Wi-Fi? Do they do it through systems up here? People are worried about, getting stuck in a classroom, not being able to communicate, and so on and so forth. Is there any other option than this path of since, short of putting in a new tower,
Right.
which takes years,
Yeah, right.
is there another path so that we have something more immediate in here for safety purposes?
So what we've been trying to do for administrators is put them on the Cell Boost on their phone. So there is an option for you to use your phone to piggyback off of our connection to the internet. Literally, it's called Wi-Fi calling.
Right.
And you go through our internal network. So you're on our Wi-Fi. It uses that to then go out to the internet and places the call. It still is a nominal increase, but there are points where you're in the basement, you get nothing, and then you add that feature and you'll get something. So it does some sort of increase. I would be hesitant to do that only because of the security. I don't know what garbage you have on your phone. And if I'm allowing that on my network, what does that create on my network? You could be playing games, you could be Bitcoin mining for all I know. But my point is that the short answer is yes, we could do that.
But teachers could do that, for instance.
We would have to add their phone
Yeah.
to our network, but yes, teachers
that's
could
an
do that.
option.
It is an
I
option.
wouldn't do it for the kids, I'd do it
Correct.
for the people
Yep.
in charge.
I think it's still a security concern, though.
Yeah, of course,
Big
but
one.
what are we gonna do? I'm just trying to get a,
It
No,
it
no,
is,
I- oh, you
regard,
mean a
good or bad,
security
it is
as
an
far as-
option. Yep.
I don't know if there's a, I don't know if
There
there'd
is an
be
alert system
security.
beyond that. There's a whole security system.
What's that?
There's a whole security system built into the school
Yeah.
now, beyond the phones.
Right,
Which
right.
is
That's true,
separate,
too.
so. As far as security goes,
Yeah,
we
we'll-
do have
we'll
that
get-
covered.
yeah.
This would be in addition to.
So if somebody's in a classroom, how do they communicate?
I have no idea.
They have a phone.
Yep.
Every classroom has a phone. They can call
Correct.
directly to the office, and I believe they can call 911.
And how
That
is
is correct.
everybody notified?
So that's what I think
Paging.
you're confusing a little bit, is the speakers are what we're missing in some of the areas, so they
Right.
wouldn't hear. If
Right.
we have a medical emergency, they might just say that there's a code blue, so that people have to stay in their classrooms while somebody might be receiving medical attention.
Right.
Those are the type of messages
And that's
that
where
people.
we're faulty right now.
Right,
Yes.
exactly. But
Got
we
it.
do have the alert system throughout the building, and that has worked through the testing. And
Okay.
everybody hears that.
Is that one on the list? Because we were gonna talk about that.
Speakers? Yeah,
Speakers.
that's coming up, yeah.
Okay.
And Tony, could you answer this one if you know, I mean, any way of getting one of these, the local antenna person, owner of the cell tower owner to put some sort of antenna on the building that maybe can,
That's a good question.
Grab
I
some of
don't
that
know. I can find
signal.
out. I'll talk to one of the
as
carriers.
opposed to, trying to get an antenna, a regular,
Yeah, right. Like a,
like maybe.
200-foot
yeah,
tower.
Maybe there's an easier way to.
I don't know, but that's a good question. I'll find out.
We just had one put in down in, on Drift Road and 88. That was.
Yeah, but that's a regular,
Most of you know.
yeah, that's just a regular antenna.
That's a big tower.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a
it's a
big
big
tower.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
what are you talking about?
No, I'm saying something smaller that would
It's
just.
an antenna that
An
you
antenna.
you could mount on some like existing structure here.
Sort of like a
50-foot
neighborhood
antenna on
instead
the
of a
building
section of a
pointing
town.
towards the closest cell tower. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. Or maybe a string in a cup.
We're doing that already.
That'd be better.
So the point here is we just want to let people know that we are still working on the cell phones.
Yep.
But we gotta get that person in here, Tony.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the gym floor, I know Kim,
Yes, so we had, a gentleman from, I don't recall the name right off the bat, but anyway, he came in Friday, he met with the Director of Maintenance, Paul Poulin, and they discussed the gym floor regarding the paint chipping, the sponginess, and some dead spots. And basically, he is, saying that due to the type of flooring that we have, the small slats, it's pretty much to be expected. That's how those floors work. So he said that's why not a lot of people have them. But they are going to process a report, and as soon as I get that, I will send that over to everybody. But it doesn't look like we'll be getting, I think painting maybe every year is gonna have to be in our future, and then we'll just keep recoding.
Now, Kim, did you mention anything about the subfloor? Should have been any different
He said
than what
he
it
was
is?
gonna go back and double check the drawings, because I had sent him, I had talked to Jim that week, and also sent him all the drawings that I had from Procore. So he did say that those were helpful, but he wanted to get out here. He came out here Friday, kind of like on a type of, like, just fit it into his schedule, so he wanted to go back and review it. I just found out about the fact that he was gonna send a report, so I didn't know that till late this afternoon, but I will email him and contact him again in the morning to see if, he put anything together yet.
So you might check with Charlie, because if I remember correctly, the floor was not supposed to be that small.
Right, but
Then it
Charlie,
was changed because they
We
couldn't
couldn't
get it.
source the wood.
With
or something.
availability,
Right.
right.
Which, once they do that, then that's a contractor's responsibility to make sure it performs to what the other one was performing to. And we never heard of any of this stuff.
No, Jeff, with that, we brought that up.
Yeah,
I don't know if we were still in the trailers, when,
Yeah,
in the regular
we were.
weekly meetings, we brought that up.
Yeah.
And I remember asking Charlie probably, or Jonathan, hey, with these new, with the new floor, should the subfloor have been any different? Oh, no.
And I believe that's how Charlie is still
Yeah, I'm
responding
sure.
right now. I think Jim had gotten something
went-
from him,
He went through the specs and said it was built in accordance with the specs. So,
even using the small boards.
the actual small boards were in the spec, they could have done either or.
Oh, okay.
We couldn't get the dolphin safe wood or something, right? I forget, it was coming from Brazil or something. We weren't able to source the wood, so that was the last minute change, because it was gonna hold up the
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
Again, none of us, the lay people, none of us think about like, hey, who cares, right? I mean, like, you would think the experts kind of,
The experts tell you it's gonna perform
Yeah.
appropriately, and you believe them.
and you believe them, but, yeah, exactly.
Some
So
of
that's-
us- Some of us do.
Some, well, we asked, Tony, we
I
asked,
know.
we asked,
I know.
we asked. All right.
So, just a point, I mean, all these things, Kim and Tony, everybody's doing extra work to kind of track these things down, so we're very appreciative of the time that they put in. This is another one, the filtration room ladder, which should have been a very simple fix. The rungs at one point were too far apart, so they did a change order, or they did some changes to the plans to make it 8 inches apart, but when they came in to fix it, they didn't do that, they just put new rungs in between the existing rungs, which you can barely get your boot through now, so.
So it went from bad to
It
worse,
went from
basically.
Yes.
bad to worse.
Yep.
Like I said, it should have been a very simple fix, but they've been
And,
dragging this on for years.
And Kim pointed out the other day, they were down, you guys were down there servicing or
Yep,
something?
we
Somebody
had
was
a
down there
pump.
doing some service work,
Mhm.
and like the guy could barely get his boot between the treads, and it's ridiculous.
Crazy.
It's just-
So I
it's-
did contact United Steel, which was the person who did the original ladder and also the person who made the modifications. I left a message for the gentleman, Stephen Lang. I sent him an email. I have not heard back. And I don't know this for a fact, but I'm wondering if they were ever paid for the ladder. And if that could be the lack of response, the reason I'm not getting a response. So I think I will just try to find another company to come in. Just
It would have been
and
from the
start from.
contractor, right? That would've
Yeah,
been-
Would've been
the
something.
contractor has to pay within a certain period of time, so I would doubt that.
Well, he might have got paid for the first one, but then he may not have gotten paid for the modification. So
Sounds
I
weird.
don't know.
Doesn't sound right. It sounds like he probably did get paid.
But I mean, I'm
Right.
not getting anything,
Yeah, I hear
so
you.
I don't know,
Yeah.
you know.
Any idea what the cost would be to repair it properly?
I don't know what the original one was, so I'll try to get that within the next 2 weeks, try to get somebody out here to definitely take a look at that.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, if we're not getting
Any
these guys to help, and it's been, 4 years now, so.
Yeah,
Kim, what was the name of that company? They did a lot of different stuff, the fence guy, the guys, we bought the fence to go around the
oh,
field.
City Works?
City Works.
Yes.
They're like a metal fabrication, aren't they?
I can ask them.
Jim?
I don't know.
I don't
What do they
know.
do? I think they get their hands in the lot. Worth
I-
calling, maybe.
Absolutely.
They were nice. They were good.
Yeah, he is very
They were
nice,
good
John
contract.
Chatfield.
Yeah.
So, and then the last thing, which is the big thing, is the commissioning list and the general punch list. We're still working through that. We're down to about 5 pages now, maybe 30, 35 items. Gale Associates, we need to meet with Brian over the next week or two, and some of these things will lift in your lap. I don't know if it's all your responsibility, but we need to figure that out. And this is important because until we get it commissioned, until MSBA signs off, they're holding a big chunk of our money, which
We're paying interest
we're
on.
paying interest on. So we're pushing to get that. The commissioning agent, who was hired by MSBA, is not real excited about coming down because he's been down so much, and he's been told by the contractor over the years that things were done, and you get down here and it wasn't done. So MSBA is helping us a little bit to get them down here, and yeah, we're working on it. There has been some pretty good progress over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, so we're moving. Slow.
And just to throw this out there, if there's one part of these projects that the MSBA could fix, I think, yeah, they hire out the commissioning agent, but they're still kind of like a sub. If that person, I don't know, just the way those contracts are written, if that person actually worked for the MSBA, you'd think it'd be a lot different, because now the contractor is dealing directly with the people who are supplying the money, as opposed to just another sub from the MSB, you know what I mean? Like, there would certainly be a better connection.
Maybe a state senator and a state rep could help us. Make a
I mean,
phone call over to
I've
them.
brought that up to them several times, but.
Well,
The communication
Gotta
on
do
that
that.
typically is MSBA is not involved.
Right.
So there's a commissioning agent for MSBA. We don't have correspondence with them. When we are a commissioning agent on a school project, we communicate with the town and with the architect and the contractor to coordinate our visits. MSBA they rarely do any follow-up on what we're.
unless there's
our
political
role.
pressure.
Yeah, unless somebody,
Well,
And I'm suggesting political pressure is necessary. This is an FSBA project that they are supposed to have some responsibility on. They dropped the ball a few times. And I think if our state senator and our rep represents us in that situation, maybe that'll move it a little, because nothing else is moving it.
you know, if you're building a house and you go to the bank tomorrow, you say, hey, I need another $20,000, the contractor needs to buy the windows, and the bank says, Tony, the house isn't even framed yet, I'm not giving you money for windows. You know, the bank's, that's what the bank's gonna say, right? I mean, like, the MSBA could do that. They could have a better
Well,
role
they're not going to let us get some pressure.
in these projects and avoid some of this nonsense.
Are we ready for the commissioning agent to come out? It sounds like we're not.
No, that's what I'm
Right,
trying to
so
get
why are
done.
we pressing them for the commissioning agent?
Because
We
they
didn't-
will put the pressure on the commissioning agent.
No, we're not ready for the commissioning agent. That's what they just said.
Yeah, one of the things we needed from the commissioning agent was what he was
What's
waiting on.
left? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there was some discrepancy with that, but I think we've gotten most of that straightened out. We've been meeting with the MSBA every month, every 4 weeks. We've had a meeting with them, they sit down with us, and I think it kind of gives the project manager a little incentive to move forward and get some things done as well, so.
Are you prepared to discuss what our options are in this punch list travesty?
Yeah, I think we're gonna do that. Brian's gonna kind of,
I mean, I know on that part we are, but on everything else?
I'm still hoping most of these will get addressed through the contractor. Or at least he comes back and says he's not gonna do it, and then we have to make a decision as to which ones we're gonna do.
And then we just hire someone and use their money. I mean, that's
Yes.
what we're gonna do.
Exactly.
And we're giving them a chance. That's what that $1.6 million is. I mean, if we need to, that's coming out of, that's gonna come out of Agostini's pocket.
Well,
Then
yeah,
he-
well, I'm looking more at the 300 and something we still owe them. So, you know, whether that, how that will work. Has our lawyer talked about that to us or anything?
Yeah, not so much with the contractor, but with the architect. But,
Yeah.
yeah, we've been holding on that last pay rec for, geez, a year and a half now, 2 years.
I mean, because you know that, I talked about it before, that when you have a punch list and it gets monetized, and then you either, they either do it or you get, you know, that money. So, but there is nuances throughout that process, obviously, but. Well, to be determined.
So we did get a recommendation from Char on the gutters and the downspouts. This was back about a month ago before we've had some additional meetings. They were recommending that some of the gutter work be looked at or replaced. They've also recommended that we go through Agostini to do that. We just haven't had much luck with the contractor over the last 4 years, but over the last couple of months in particular, we haven't had much response from them. In my opinion, I don't think they're gonna do it. I think we're gonna have to go out to bid ourselves for whatever work we wanna do. It'd be much easier if they did it. We wouldn't have to go out to bid. They could just do it under their existing contract, but they haven't been real responsive. Once we get this list after this meeting, hopefully we can talk to town council and send it to them, and I give them a certain amount of time to fix it and see what the response is. If it's a positive response, we can take a look at it. If not, we move forward.
You need a formal vote to do that, Jim?
Not right now, I
Okay.
will. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we will.
Yeah, once we know more information.
We do need a vote on the Gale Associates proposal. Brian, if you just want to give a quick update on some of the details with the proposal.
I don't have a copy of the proposal on me. I mean, I have this letter, so The proposal itself that we sent over included the time for a lot of the meetings that you were talking about and coming out to the roof to continue assisting you in trying to resolve some of these items. We carried another task item, which was to do the leak testing that we did about 3-4 weeks ago. And then we included an additional service to put together bid documents to go out for a public bid on some of the repair scope. So that's what those allocations are for.
And your biggest number was the construction phase services of 58,000.
It was a not to exceed number more than anything else, because you weren't at the time sure how often you wanted us to be here, nor do we know what the term of the contractor is. I think that was once a week plus a couple additional site visits to be thrown in for 4 or 5 months. I mean, it was excessive. So it was based upon what Cape Way had told us at the meeting. So if we went with the modified scope of work, it's going to be much quicker, and that will be a lot less. But we would, it's time and expense. Essentially, we use it as you need us to come out here to look at things.
So the total proposal was $92,200. It included $5,200 for ongoing leak evaluation. Some of that's been
Ongoing work has been gone and spent at this point.
evaluation services, which was a fixed fee of $5,700. Design services. So if we go out to bid, we got to have a design to go out to bid with, and we need bid documents to go out to bid. So that was $18,500. Bid services, optional time and expense fee of $4,100.
That's if we need to come out here and walk the contractors around the building, to answer RFI questions, process the bids, look at the bids and make a recommendation letter to you to move forward with it.
So my recommendation is that we approve the proposal not to exceed $92,200.
So
Brian.
moved.
Any questions?
Second.
Any questions on the proposal? Anyone? So just, so we hired Gale Associates over a year ago
Yeah, at least a year ago.
to help us, come to some end with, figure out exactly what was going on with the gutters and all this stuff, so.
No, it's been good. They're an
They've been very
independent
helpful.
voice. They've kind of mediated some of this stuff, so it's been helpful.
I think there's still gonna have to be conversations as we go along, as the scope gets defined, so that we make sure that you're only going through with the ones that we want. Remember, we talked about a couple options of things to do.
Yep, we've started to
Staging.
mark that out. I'd be happy to
Okay.
talk about that
Yeah, okay.
now or
Good.
later this week, weeks to come.
Good.
Anything else, anyone?
You vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Sorry. All right, so motion passes.
So the next step is, like I said, we met last week with Brian, Jeff,
We put our heads together.
Charlie. Yeah, we met for probably 4 hours. And it wasn't just that meeting. We've been discussing this for a long time. Brian from Gale has been up on the roof a number of times doing leak detection and some other tests up there. So this isn't something that's happened overnight. It's been ongoing. I don't know if you want to just highlight some of the changes that we're looking at. Originally, we were looking at redoing all the gutters, taking all the gutters off the building, taking all the flashing out from under the gutters, making sure that everything was sealed, putting flashing back, putting new gutters on. Since the downspouts have been opened, they were originally only 2 inches, or they were opened up to the size that was, the gutters have not been overflowing. Nothing's perfect, but there may be some alternative things that we can do that aren't as involved as that.
Sure. So, we've come out multiple times to look at different issues that you guys have been trying to deal with and address. Quite a few of those items became, I guess, a punch list that CHA incorporated into the other commissioning punch list. A lot of those items were resolved by the contractor. I think at the end of the day, there's a handful of items on the list that have our name next to it. 3/4 of them are not really things that we brought up, and there's 2 items that we did bring up that I believe that everyone agreed was just going to be too complicated to address at this time. But for generally speaking, we were able to go through and fix quite a few of those items. One of the things that was pulled out was the water management on the roof. The gutters were problematic. They did make some repairs to them. But generally, we're finding that a lot of the staining you're seeing around the building, and that's what this report kind of helps document, is moisture that's not staying on the roof and getting to the gutters, right? It's spilling over the edges. And so we came out and leak tested using a garden hose, essentially, to recreate where the water is going on the roof to try to identify how to resolve some of those issues. So we had 2 PDFs and another email from 3 different events that was sent to us from the town. Those were on March 17th, April 26th, and May 23rd of this year, showing different conditions in the building, staining, water marks, things like that. And so, trying to recreate that, we came up with a list of A through N of items. And a lot of these have to do with water rolling over the edges of the building in multiple locations. And so, there's a couple factors. When we put water in the gutter is holding water. It's not spilling outside of that gutter. But when you have water that hits the downspout and comes down the downspout, the water is not contained in the downspout, right? If you're at your home, you have a rectangle that goes from top to bottom. Here we have an open chute. And so that open chute, you can see there on the left, has a cover plate, but essentially the water is free to do what it wants inside that chute as it falls down 2 stories. The bottom of them is wide open. This EPDM that was put in place to take the larger size to go down to a standard, I think it's a 5x4 square, well, rectangle, that goes to the below grade retainage system, is not really built for the purpose that it should be. So normally we would have a gutter the same size straight up, or we'd have an adapter that you probably see at your house that, takes it from a square or round to a different shape, and then that goes straight up to the top. So we would essentially remove that EPDM, remove the cover plate, put in a downspout that would collect the water and drain it out properly. And then, depending on the aesthetics, we could either put a new cover back on or reuse the existing cover if possible. But it's likely that the cover, which has a bent inward shape, may conflict with some of the downspout locations, and so some sort of new flat cover would probably be necessary, which would be a cost item. It just depends on what we want it to look like afterwards. So that would address the water that's coming down the building, and when you see the staining along the downspout locations, that's the water that's spraying and hitting the brick. It's bypassing the open gutter and getting into the cavity. On other locations, there's a lot of heavy staining. In the top picture on the top right, you can see it every, say, 20 feet or so down the building. What we're finding is that the roof is not, normally you have a roof and a roof edge that goes over the veneer, right? In this case, that roof edge is pushed inwards, and you have a shelf. And so the water is collecting on that shelf and rolling over the shelf at locations where the sheet metal comes together. Where it comes together, there's a gap, there's a cover plate, there's a base plate behind it, which is good, but that gives it a low spot. The water collects in the channel, shoots down the face of the channel, and that's why it's staining in the locations that those joints are occurring. We also find that the water is not rolling straight down to the gutters. In some cases, the building, like the gymnasium, steps in, and so when you have a high to low point, but that low point gets smaller, water's going to roll over the edges. At other locations, the roof edge is not completely flat and level, and so if you put water on it, it comes along and it bangs right, and then it goes over the edge. And so what's happening is that more water is getting to that ledge that's created there, and that's either shooting water straight down to the end of the wall and kind of pouring out, or dripping down at the corners of the building. But the water is also collecting along that channel and shooting down all the rake edges, seam joints as well. And so what the contractor ended up doing at the gymnasium was putting you have a PVC roof up there, and the PVC manufacturers make these little battens. They're about 1.5 inches tall. They welded that in and ran it down all along the gymnasium, and now you don't have the water that's pouring down over the gymnasium walls. We could do the same thing along other rake edges to redirect the water off the rake and get it back towards the gutter. You could use the PVC strips. We could use a PVC clad metal that gets stripped in. We could replace the roof edge and put a gravel edge metal in. There's a couple different options. The PVC batten is probably the cheapest way to go. But that would basically, you put it at the rake edges and it just kind of collects any water that's going out to the edges and pushes it back to the middle. It's not ideal, obviously, but it would be a quick repair. You would still see some water at those stain locations you're getting now, because the shelf is still going to collect some water. But we're finding, or it's our belief, that most of that staining is because you have an excess of water from the roof that's getting there. So it won't completely disappear, but it should be a lot better. Is this the whole these are your photos or the
I just
PDF
took a few of
photos?
the photos and put them on, so.
Is there another page of them?
No, this is
No,
it.
okay. So the one on the right is a little bit different. I have I sent to him very late, so. he doesn't have these. So I can show a net plan later if people are interested, but the roof edge at the front of the building is difficult because it's a flat roof. So the structure of this building is pitched, so you have a gable roof essentially that's very shallow. The gable roof has a flat layer of insulation that goes from the top all the way down. When we get to the front of the building, the structure is flat. And so the roof system that's flat on top of that is also flat. And so the contractor built a cricket that's a big diamond essentially to direct water coming down that section to go left and right. And what happens is that water does go left and right, but it's not long enough to get to where the gutters are. And if it was, it still is about 4 feet inboards of the gutter line. And so what happens is the water comes in right where the building steps back. There's no gutter there, and the water is just sitting there and rolling over, and when the wind blows it over in bigger gusts.
So if I could just expand on that. If that cricket wasn't there, the water would come straight down and end up in the gutter like every other place. Really no problem.
This is the front of the building here, actually.
Putting the cricket there all of a sudden takes all of that water that's hitting the roof and directs it to 2 points rather than all along the whole front. And that's why it's shooting out there and missing the gutter or hitting the gutter and filling it up and overflowing and stuff
According
like that.
to the Art Charlie, that cricket wasn't in the plans,
So
Brian, or?
the roof area plan, which is we have here, does show the indication for an area of roof that would be tapered differently. There are no details for how to install that, or no details that show it. So the details show a perfectly flat roof edge.
So the
no
roofing
taper.
contractor did what he thought was best.
So when you look at what's there, it's not your typical construction. You wouldn't normally build a tapered slope to the roof edge that is, 30 feet long. It just is, they didn't plan for it, they didn't understand it. It was never communicated to them during the shop drawing process from what we could see. And so what's on there is what was approved in the shop drawing process. The options are to either build the cricket that the architect had expected to see, and never required. Because that roof comes out, so one of the problems is that the standard roof edge is at the pitch where the structure comes down and stops, right? So now when you have a flat roof that's 10, 12 feet deeper, you can't build that same pitch to that area. So now you're building a pitch that goes up, much higher up onto the roof. So it's a lot more insulation to maintain that roof at the same elevation. So normally another option would be to step down, but they want to maintain that same roof edge line. So to do that, we would need to build a cricket that goes up from all of the roof edge lines.
Or tapered, yeah.
A taper, essentially a 1/4 inch per foot. You'll still have some triangle areas of that cricket that will direct water to the areas that don't have gutters. Because we're still trying to maintain an even roof edge around the building. So we could add that cricket in. We could remove the existing cricket and just leave it flat, which will allow the water rolling down to get to the gutter. But you also get some ponding water there. You get some now anyways, but you'll get more ponding water. And the third option would be just to add gutters to these other locations, which you might want to do if you do the cricket with the architect's plan anyways, because you'll still get some water in those locations. That will be probably more expensive because there's a lot more sheet metal work to rework the corners there.
Yeah,
Or
Brian-
we just append something to the side of the building and see how it looks.
And Brian, another thing we kind of realized the other day was that our gutters, from the top of the roof to the top of the gutter, I mean, typically it's like a couple of inches or so, and ours are like 4 or 5 inches in some
It's
locations.
probably a good 6 to 8 inches lower.
So you could imagine water coming off the roof quickly in an area where, the roof, these crickets are directing the water to a certain area. That water's coming off the roof and it's just going right over the gutter.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing, you know, on these front locations.
But that's mainly just 2 locations, right?
Right.
So this would be 2 main locations, and the cricket that needs to be removed is probably, 40 or 50 feet. I mean, it's the length of this bump
This
out.
front bump out.
Which is probably more.
It's like if you
100
had a
feet.
normal roof, like this, at your house, and you took this end and you built a flat roof right next to it. That's what we have here. So it comes down and then hits that flat roof.
And it's going to the 2 ends instead of
And
straight.
so they knew that the roofer knew that would be a problem if you left it like that, because this flat roof would just collect water and hold it. So they directed it off the 2 ends, and you know what happens when you do that. So.
But there's a solution, right?
Yeah, well, that's what we just
So
said.
we have 3 different solutions. We listed them in here. We have the one shown here that we had talked about, which is building the cricket back up the way the JLA wanted it to have it. But that would then ideally resolve at least the amount of water that's getting there. You'll still see
Brian,
some
when you
water.
say build the cricket, we're talking about
So-
peeling off the vinyl, the roof membrane,
Yes.
and maybe removing and then reinstall. And it's basically, we just add an insulation, right, to a certain grade, certain pitch.
It might be slightly more complicated than that, only because I don't know how the existing roof's attached. So the roof membranes adhere to the cover board, which will probably be wrecked in the process of removing it. So we have to go down to the next layer. If we have one that's mechanically fastened, we'll go down that far. If it's all adhered, we have to come up with a couple different options. We have to remove something, maybe mechanically attach a new cover board, and then we'll work it out.
But it's all work that's done on top of the roof. It's nothing, we're not putting holes in
We're
the
not-
building or anything like that.
And then just
We could
and then
potentially,
do it over top of it, like get your tapered
I
insulation.
just can't
on top.
adhere something to a facer that's been wrecked. So we may have to mechanically fasten something and then add the membrane to it. It's not, once we
we can
get
talk
up the
later.
options,
We
we'll
can talk
figure it
later,
out
yeah.
and
So on all these things, you're gonna fine tune the options and kind of come up with a cost estimate, and then we'll decide whether or not.
we've shown the scope so far. I think that we've talked about what we need to do next, with the amendment approved, is do the detailing now.
Right.
So we'll walk through these options with you and then confirm the detailing and put together a bid package in a couple weeks. The other items are the masonry at the roof edge and at the ground level under the windows. Those are heavily stained from moisture and are growing moss and mold, moss and algae. And what we want to do is remove that, clean it, cut the mortar back to solid mortar, and then rebuild it with mortar and sealant where needed.
These are various locations throughout the building, right?
A lot of them.
All of the windowsills that are at grade or on a roof level.
I mean, if you
They're,
look, they put in this much brick underneath the windows, and the flashing goes down behind it, and all of the mortar is breaking up in that, and mold's growing because all the water that's behind the wall gets caught there, and it's harder to get out at that point, so.
there's 1 or 2 other minor deficiencies we've noted that we would also just have the roofer fix while they're up there. There are other underlying things we think we've talked about in the past that we are not addressing here, but this would address the staining and the moisture issues that we're seeing on the outside of the building.
Question before we get off that, if we could. Do we have a bond on the roof? I would assume we do, a new roof. Usually we come with a 20 or 30-year
Warranty.
Warranty.
yeah.
Warranty.
So, if we have that in place, and you're gonna be up on the roof doing these things, which I think need to be done, how does that affect the bond?
So I believe I'm not positive, but I believe the roof is a Sarnafil roof system, a PVC system, and what we would do is work with the manufacturer. We would notify them of the work. They would come out and do an inspection at the end of the work to make sure that they sign off on it and maintain the warranty in those areas. We also require that the contractor who's bidding on it has certain qualifications, years of experience doing this, but also that they're pre-approved by that manufacturer to do the work that's being asked to be
And my
done.
follow-up would be, who controls the bond right now? Who's our contact from the school department? Can we contact them and let them know that we're in this process?
for the warranty?
So because I've seen warranties not hold up bonds.
Talking about
on
Greenwood,
roofs.
Tony, the contractor?
Before, we've been up on the roof quite a bit now, too. There's fine language, I would think, in those roofs. The more times you go up there, the more possibilities of other leaks springing because of people on roofs. And over the years, that's one of the reasons for having the bonds on a roof, the 20 to 30-year bonds for the construction. And so I think everything you're suggesting is right on. I just want to make sure that we don't jeopardize liability concerns here, and that we're able to tap into that bond. That's a sum of money that we can use if things are not performed. It's a warranty, basically.
Right,
If
the
it's not
warranty,
performed.
a roof warranty
Right.
is from the manufacturer on the product, correct?
So I don't know what you have here specifically, but usually you'll have the contract, or the roofing subcontractor will have his
His work,
guarantee
for the work.
for a year or two. And then you'll have a manufacturer who has material, usually warranty for 20 or 30 years. There may be some prorated labor in there depending on the options that were selected in the project.
Right.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, most schools that were constructed had bonds, 20 or 30-year bonds on a roof.
Well, it's not a bond, there's no physical money there, it's a warranty that they
Well,
will be
it's a
responsible to come out
backup, yeah,
and
it's a-
repair.
Yeah, they're not setting the money aside, but the term was used as a roof bond, 20 or 30 years and a guarantee for the construction. That's what I'm talking about.
So,
I can't imagine that's eliminated, and all I'm saying is, let's pay attention to that before we do much more on the roof, because we could be jeopardizing what we're doing now without contacting those folks. And it's on a year. The amount of money you get for that, the first couple of years is quite a lot, based on what you're gonna do. But if you wait 3 or 4 years, and we're probably in almost our 4th year now, that's gonna be reduced.
so we actually have the warranty on file.
Yep.
So if you read that, you'll understand what it is that we are given in that, whether it's just the material or if it's material and labor, and if there's any prorating and all, it's all in there. So
Okay.
all we have to do is pull that out and take a look at it. But, Tony's point is, spot on. We have to make sure that we continue to have that warranty, so. And we will.
MSBA should help us on
We
that,
should.
because that's kind of a
Yeah.
standard for the state in terms of school construction for schools.
Unfortunately, the repairs that we're talking about here are not repairing the system that is warranted
Oh, yeah,
per
yeah.
se. We're adding to that system, so it wouldn't be, these
Oh,
repairs.
I
would-
understand that. I'm
looking
just
for that.
talking
He's
about the
looking for
liability.
The liability, yep.
If you try to,
Continuing, yeah.
if a year from now we got a problem, and they're saying, well, wait, you've been up on
Without
the roof
jeopardizing
doing these
it.
repairs.
We would have those conversations with the manufacturer, make sure
Yeah.
that it doesn't impact the existing warranties.
And I know from the few times that I've already called the company that they are aware that we have issues here. And because first I have to call the warranty company, and then they contact Greenwood, and then Greenwood contacts me to come out and repair the roof. So, but like I said, the warranty people are aware that there's issues.
And Brian, to be clear, the issues we're having isn't with the actual membrane, the roof membrane itself. It's
Right.
maybe with the way it was installed.
Some of the detailing.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
the detail. It's not that the roof itself is failing, it's just the way it
Right.
was constructed.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, so we had a couple of other items that we've been discussing for 3, 4 years now that the school department has been pushing for. These would all be extra work orders or change orders. One is the sound panels in the auditorium. The insulation panels that were never installed, and according to the architect and the contractor, weren't really included in the drawings. There was question whether or not they were included, but they both agreed that it should have been a change order, so we can do it through them, or we could do it ourselves. I think it would be easier if we just went out and did it ourselves.
These panels are, just to explain it, these panels are really easy to take off. They're on a Z-clip, which just allows you to pick it up and take it off like a picture and put it right back on again. So then they can take it off, put up the insulation behind it, and put it back on, so.
Well, at last week's meeting, Charlie said he was gonna contact the installer, they were a local company, and find out exactly how those things came off or something, right?
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
And then the third thing, C for we'll get back to B, but C was also the sound system in the auditorium that, I don't know, let you explain what the issues are with the sound system.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What? Little levity.
I'll hold that pause just for a second, just to get you. So the auditorium was built for a couple of generic reasons. There was no specific reason, but how we use it currently is very specific. 90% of everything that happens in there is a performance of some sort. So the design is too basic. There's a lot of echo, which we're looking at the sound dampening panels. And the audio is insufficient. So when we're doing performances and you have either a live band or music playing through the main speakers, you can't even hear the main character speaking at all. As a matter of fact, Tony, when he's up on stage during school committee meetings, he will have a hard time hearing himself speak into said microphone and regurgitate out of the speakers.
It
So,
was very noticeable from day one.
Yep.
When we started using that auditorium, there was a problem with the sound, you just couldn't hear it.
So we're talking, just to let everybody know that's gonna be watching this, we're talking about items A and C right now.
correct,
Okay.
correct. So the idea is to do a twofold improvement. Add more speakers and add sound dampening in addition to said speakers.
So who's looking at the design of the new speakers?
So the design has been done through Okers. Okers is a company that has done a lot of other school projects in the state
Chris
before.
Nunes has had, our music director has had him
Correct.
in here
Oh,
a few
okay.
times to look at
Good.
the auditorium.
Yep.
I don't know them, but
Yep,
And then the third thing up there is B, which is the speakers in all the individual little rooms that we have throughout the building. We looked into this, and according to the architect, we did have speakers in every one of these rooms when we first went out to bid, but they were value engineered out or managed out.
Is that what
Doesn't-
Charlie said?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I know the school's been pushing for it. All the little classrooms, and not classrooms, but teachers' offices
Breakout
between the two
rooms.
classrooms, breakout rooms, none of them have speakers, so they're not getting the PA announcements. They still get the emergency
correct.
alerts through a different system, so that is covered, but they are not hearing the normal announcements.
Correct.
I make a motion, we approve all of it.
Second.
You see listed there.
are we done yet, or?
Those three.
Yeah, those three, and we do have the ARPA money. I recommend we use that to pay for this, and the additional 25 or 50,000 come from the
Add
school
that to my
budget.
motion.
Second.
I already
Thanks,
seconded
Tom.
Tom.
No, we want Tom on the record for
Just
that.
making sure you're awake, Tom.
He's been waiting for that.
Any
I've been
further,
dying for it because I haven't heard one word in that auditorium since they opened it up.
any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Gym floor, we already talked about, and then we have 4 invoices, 2 from Greenwood, one for $641 and change, I can't see, another one for $1,282. Those were for some roof repairs. We tabled this at our last steering committee meeting. We're gonna look at it. I don't know if you got any additional information.
It really didn't show me anything, and I thought we would try to look at those again when we were up there last week, but with everybody talking. But I know it's definitely, it wasn't anything that was, like I said, what they were trying to say was that we were stepping on things over there, but these are areas that nobody goes over there, and there was broken mortar off the roof. There was also, a seam that had to be resealed, and then again, the company Greenwood decided to caulk all that around the edges, which is not really what should have been done. So
So, Kim, they were called for
they were called for
something, for a specific reason.
because we had a leak in the gym teacher on the middle school side in her office. It's happened over and over and over again. So each time they came, no, now
All
it's
right, now
done.
it's fixed, okay.
But each time they came, it was a different reason. It was a bird. There's no holes or anything. They showed a separation of a seam, so they did seam that, reseal that, but there wasn't anything that was,
So the question is, why isn't it covered under the warranty?
right.
And why are we paying? And he said that we were
He
having a
said that
baseball
these-
game up there or something?
Yeah, he said that these weren't items that were covered under the warranty.
Who's he?
The gentleman from Greenwood.
Greenwood.
Is he a representative to make that decision?
Somebody
I mean,
decided.
Greenwood's the one that's put it all in, so.
Right. They put the
Who
roof.
you're talking to, though.
It just was the worker. He reported to the office that it was not a warranty. So when I called the office to verify, he said that it was considered not a warranty item.
including the seam that came open?
The seam was not charged. This was a hole and where the area was that they caulked, because they said that that was the reason for the leak. But it's not.
Do you believe them?
Well, I was told that that's not really what they shouldn't have caulked that.
I'm not sure what they caulk, so we should look
Right.
at what area that is, but
It
the
was right
PVC
up-
membrane,
yeah.
if it's a seam, should be a welded seam or a patch seam.
Right, so that they did cover, that was one of the other times that they came, but these two times, they showed a piece of the mortar, and then they showed like hole. And then they said that, they had to caulk that area, because that was another, it wasn't caulked, and it should have been caulked, but it wasn't,
Makes sense.
yeah.
So, I mean, we've been kind of bouncing these two bills around for a few months now.
Yeah, really.
Maybe we could just authorize Kim or the school department to contact Greenwood again and maybe get a better explanation, and if you
Sure.
feel that.
If you feel comfortable, then we'll go ahead. and-
Yeah, well, support
Okay.
whatever you
Yeah.
decide. You
Yeah.
guys are close to it, but it just seems a little shaky to me.
And Kim, the 641, to get both of them, those were two different times?
Yes, yes,
Basically the same
it
idea.
was the same leak.
And service point is the balance of the antenna, which
Yeah, we'll hold
Tony's
off
gonna
on-
get the guy in here.
The Encore
And the
Fire
Encore.
is an old bill from 2022, I have no
Is that for the panel movement, Kim?
I believe it did have to do with that. I still haven't gotten the actual invoice, which I'm still working on, Jim. I keep calling. But I believe that was when they had to come in and reprogram that. So the company that we had move the panel is not the company that can put in all the computer information. So we had to call Encore back to, have them
Okay.
connect it.
So I move we authorize or approve we authorize Kim to approve the two invoices for Greenwood Industries and the invoice for Encore Fire Protection, not to exceed the numbers that we have in front of us.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Kim.
So the last thing that I have is, we had received correspondence from CHA, who is our project manager, who is requesting additional compensation for work that they say that they have done related to legal issues, which is not part of their contract. I talked to town council, and he helped draft a letter that we will send out to CHA, basically saying that we've never asked for this additional work, we've never signed any additional change orders or contracts for this work. We need more explanation, and we'll go from there.
Personally, if they had done their job, we wouldn't even be here
Yeah,
today.
exactly.
We had 10 people in.
They have
We
still
didn't have
been
10
working
different
with us.
project managers.
They have not refused to work with us,
Yep.
but,
That's a good part.
Right? I mean, if they,
That's a good part.
yeah.
if they,
Yeah.
if they did their
Better
job,
than-
we'd all be
better-
home right
Better
now.
than Agostini,
Yeah, well,
who doesn't return any phone calls.
That's all I had. I don't know if you had anything
all
else.
right. No, so again, just to, behind the scenes, there's a lot that, these guys have been doing.
Yeah.
Jim, Kim, everybody, Tom, everybody, trying to wrap this up. So, anything else? Anyone?
Oh, we just appreciate all the work Tom's done, and Jim, and certainly in-house here, all the staff people. Appreciate
And again,
staying with it.
aside from all these,
Would
we,
agree.
all of us in this room, we're all in the back and we know how the sausage is made.
Yep.
But when you drive by this building, it's a brand-new, beautiful school, kids running around, a lot of great things going on. Right, Tom?
Agreed.
And, the average kid walking in that door doesn't know anything about the roofs or gutters, doesn't care, that's not what's important. So we just want to, finish this mess and, tidy up things nice so that we can all concentrate on the kids that walk through
Tony,
the
can I
door.
throw something out there for 1 second?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know how much money is gonna be left when all is said and done, but, if there was any type of legitimate money left, would it be possible to at least sort of look at installing some lights on the fields, or has that ship sailed?
Hey, I'm all for it.
I don't think there was any question before of the need for lights. I think there was a neighborhood concern about what would happen if the lights were out there in the tennis courts.
That was a big
But,
concern.
yeah, but.
It's not a concern anymore.
Yeah, I don't think that's an issue anymore, to be honest with you.
No, it has,
I'm
it
not
never
sure the
was
town
a
would be
concern.
opposed to having lights on the fields.
That was one person's worry.
And we do have the money.
She sold.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we can get donations as well, but there's very few schools that don't have lights on their fields.
No, that would be a,
Especially if your
that would
teams
be
are
a big
competitive,
game
they
Is
changer.
there,
gotta get into the
is
playoffs.
it possible, if we're gonna add things like that, that we look at, the additional, lands that the school board
Which
owns?
we own, yeah. Tom, what do you, Tom, you got a quote one time, correct?
It was
Yeah,
about,
I
Like
wanna
7
say
million.
it was about 7 or 8
$700,000.
million.
700,000?
No, it was
No,
about 7 or 8
we-
million.
7 million.
Yeah.
No, no, just for the lights, no, this is just for the lights on
Oh,
the
no, he
existing
said-
field.
He talked about, he said the land, he
I
didn't say
said,
the
I
lights.
said the land over there, the fields, new fields.
No, no, but I'm asking about lights for the current, these fields here.
Yeah.
It was
No, I know-
700,000.
I know, yeah, yeah. But what I'm asking is, since it's all part of school, and since originally we wanted more fields, before I even came here, I guess in the planning, you've been telling me, Tony, if we can possibly have that money for the fields.
I don't think we should do
I
that.
don't think-
That goes against what even this building committee was totally opposed to approaching that. Those funds were voted on at town meeting for the purposes that we talked about, and I think it should stay on the school grounds.
Well,
I'd love to
that
do
is school
something with the
grounds.
others.
No, but that is school.
It wasn't at
grounds
the
now.
time. You might
No, I
not
know,
have
I
been-
know.
the
No,
early
I know the
meetings,
whole
we
thing.
tried to make that part of the school grounds in the acquisition that we first did that. And I had some heated discussions with people on this board, they didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And town meeting voted a certain way. Now, if we go back and start doing it and saying, why are we doing that now? That was never.
But I mean, there's not enough money anyway to do it. There might be
Nobody
money for
said.
lights, but there's not money to do the fields.
Well, no, that's true, but it's a
At
good
least right
start.
now, at least right now. And to be honest, Jeff, that's why, you know, I mean, yes, we
I just
we
bring
bought
up
the
the
land, we have the land, but no one's
And-
been,
and it was
you know, we haven't
given-
been banging that drum lately because we have other drums
Well,
that we need to be.
the reason the question came up is why I brought it up, is that originally, it was not part of the town, not part of the school board. It was bought by the town, and the town was looking into what to do with it, including Council on Aging, and, I mean, I was on the committee. I was a chair of the committee. And then it went to the school board, to the school. So the school actually owns it now. And the thought was back then of why it was being transferred was after our study, we said that Fields was the
Well,
best
just to
way
make
to
it
use
easier
it.
to develop it.
And so then the town put it over to the school legally, and so now it is part of the school, which it never was before. So that can bring up the question again. And as far as, yes, it does not pay for it, but it's one heck of a start to it. Even if we don't, I'm not saying go out and expend it now. I'm saying, can we save that money if there's money left over? I think the things we're doing here is fantastic. You know, we need the speakers, we need the PA system, we need all those things.
There's no doubt we need more field space.
but-
We
but-
can't keep busing
But I
kids
think that
to
we
the
have
old
to
high
really
school.
seriously think about, you know, in the end, if there's monies, of whether we want to try to start something new with the rest of the fields, since that's what was voted on by the town.
We could slowly start to bang that drum a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Anyways.
All right, anything else, anyone?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks everyone for coming, thank you so much.
Excellent.
Thanks, Tom.